Hi, and in this video, I'm going to be riding the Railtrack Riders pedal buggy tour between Maydena and Florentine Junction on the old Derwent Valley railway line. Railtrack Riders operates out of Maydena railway station, an old station on the Derwent Valley line. Hi, I'm Tasmanian, and this is Australia's only pedal railway. After a bit of a drive, I arrived at Maydena.
First glimpses of Railtrack Riders.
And after a bit of a walk down some side streets in Maydena, I arrived at Maydena station.
Okay, so I've arrived at Railtrack Riders. Down this end is the track towards Florentine. I've done that before. But up this way is the track towards Pig and Whistle off Fitzgerald, which is where I'm going to be riding today.
Okay, so I didn't mention this while I was there, because I only found out right then, but we ended up being changed onto the track to Florentine Junction instead of going to Pig and Whistle, because during the last few weeks there's been a lot of wild weather in Tasmania, and it damaged the track and the buggies couldn't get through to Fitzgerald. This meant we're going to Florentine Junction. Hydro siding is located about 3/4 of a kilometre to the west of Maydena. It is located in the middle of some fields on the side of the track. There is a large silo that was originally located at Macquarie Plains railway station that is now positioned there and is abandoned. Hydro siding was first used for a paper mill, and it was the only import site on the entire Derwent Valley line. After the paper mill closed, Hydro Tasmania used it to import concrete and other materials in for its construction on the Gordon River Road and the dams.
Who was your tour guide when you came out, Jeff or
I
John?
don't remember, it's a while ago. I don't actually remember stopping anywhere along it though. So.
Most times it doesn't. That would have been probably John. I push them out, I push them back.
I remember just going out to Florentine Junction, then doing like the walk there, and then going back.
Okay, when you look here, you will actually see a pattern in the moss that's coming through. This was where the Nicholl Spur line came.
Also, those look like they were cut from wood somewhere,
Yep.
and they look too old to have been like recent, I reckon.
So we're looking at, this one is 90 years ago it was.
Yep.
1942 I think they put it in.
Yep.
Yep. You're allowed to correct me if I get it wrong.
Yeah.
Okay, shall we explore and time this track?
Yep.
You sure? Okay. I saw them that way, close, but last time I did it, I saw it lost. Every time you come here, or every time I come here, There's more trees down.
Well, especially after the recent weather, I wouldn't be surprised.
We've had, in the last 2 weeks, 13 big trees across the track.
Is that just on this side?
No, on the other side. Well, you can sort of see where
Yep.
it's through here it would have
It's
been.
like a bit less
Yeah.
full of scrub than everywhere else.
They're prickly.
Yeah.
I'm not sure of the exact track. I can't see it. It's in the think it's maybe that way. I know I'm not on it now.
That looks like a cutting over that side, I guess.
So, looking over here a bit. This is what a regrowth is like after 80 years of it. It doesn't go quickly though. I'm going to go around that way a bit, but I think the track was really here. It's a bit hard to see. Okay, we go off track a little bit. Pretty sure we go this way. The other thing that's a bit confusing, there used to be where we are, we're on that line, near it there are timber railway lines before this one was built. So if we go here, and back over this way a bit more.
Well, that looks quite open over there.
Yeah.
Oh, I reckon it like sort of like hugged that wall, I guess.
Well, that's my guess. Oh look, there's people down here.
Yep.
We didn't get lost. Is the platypus there? No. Doesn't exist. His den is on the far side, just next to the logs.
What'd you say?
That was at the old path through there.
If you look down there, come over a bit further, I think. Just on the bank, going into the water, you can see
Yeah.
one railway line, one rail still there. I keep saying that when the river's right down, I'm going to go across the other side and find out where the track goes.
Florentine, formerly known as Florentine Junction, was located on the Derwent Valley Line. It was a terminus after the extension to Callista closed and remained as such until the line's closure. Florentine was the main hub of A&M operations in Tasmania, with the majority of its tramways branching off from near the yard. About 200 metres from the station, on the closed alignment, there was a depot for trains and trams. Until 1991, Florentine Junction was a major export site for the forestry industry in Tasmania.
From here, the railway line used to continue to Callista, about 10 kilometers from here. Now that's mostly on private property and is absolutely gone. So, at least for now, the railway terminates here at Florentine.
Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time on Tasmanian.